قل هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة أنا ومن اتبعني وسبحان الله وما أنا من المشركين.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد. Dear brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to this live edition of Ask Zad, coming to you live every Saturday between Maghrib and Isha, Mecca time. As usual, we will take 3 quick questions from the emails and then we will take your live questions. So the first question is, what am I supposed to do when I'm out with my family in a car and it's time for prayer and they refuse to stop? Do I pray in the moving car or combine prayers after reaching my destination? First of all, we have to acknowledge a basic fact in our religion. This basic fact is that our lives revolve around Islam and not the other way around. So the priority is Islam, and our lives must fit our religion and be compatible with it, not the other way around. And unfortunately, the vast majority of Muslims don't do that. On the contrary, they work, they study, they go for their errands, they do whatever they want, with the prayer at the bottom of their priority list. So if there's time to pray, we will pray. If there isn't time to pray, Allah is most forgiving, most merciful. That is not the right thing to do. Our schedules should be revolving around prayer times. So if we're gonna find a conflict between prayers and our schedules, we give priority to our prayers. If this was the case, we would not have such questions. You're going out with the family. It is time for Asr in 10-15 minutes. And you know that they will not stop until the sun sets. So you will not have time to pray Asr. You should stop here and say, I'm not going. Either we pray and go, or you give me your word and commitment that I will be able to stop at a gas station or at a park and pray, or at a masjid. And if they don't give you their commitment, don't go with them. However, hypothetically speaking, you found yourself in such a position. You're in the car, you're in a bus. Your father, your brother, your driver who's driving the bus is refusing to stop. What to do? You have to do your best to make them stop. If they don't, if they refuse, in this case, we look at the prayer at stake. If it can be combined to the prayer after it, for example, if the prayer time is dhuhr, and you won't be able to pray it on time, but it can be combined to the prayer after, which is Asr, so be it. If it's Maghrib, and you won't be able to pray Maghrib on time, but you can combine it to Isha, so be it, combine it to Isha. Because this is a necessity and you are forced to do that thing. What to do if it is not? If it's Fajr, can't be combined. If it's Asr, can't be combined because Maghrib follows. Or it's Isha, there's nothing to combine it with. In this case, if there's no possibility for you to combine it, in this case, due to necessity, Allah says, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah to the best of your ability. In this case only, when there is no other escape, you may pray to the best of your ability. Meaning if you can stand up and face the Qibla, you must do that. As standing up is a pillar, facing the Qibla is a condition. If you're unable, you're not in a bus, you're in a car. So you may pray while sitting down if you're able to face the Qibla, which is most likely not possible because the car is driving. somewhere. In this case, you pray as you are, sitting down, because this is the best you can do and Allah knows best. The second question from the emails, is it permissible to face the grave when making dua for its occupant, for the deceased? This depends on the intention. If your intention, which is the norm for people visiting graveyards, is to make dua for the deceased, ask Allah for forgiveness for the deceased, ask Allah to expand His grave for the deceased, then it doesn't matter where you face. Whether you face the Qibla, whether you face the Qabr, it's all alike. Because the Prophet ﷺ, after concluding burying one of his companions, he used to tell the companions, who are alive of course, ask Allah for forgiveness for your brother and ask Allah to make him steadfast as he's being questioned now. So the Prophet ﷺ ordered them to make dua for him, but he did not tell them to face the Qibla, which means it's not necessary. But there are people who do not follow the Sunnah, who are ignorant of the authentic and correct and pure Aqeedah. So they may go to cemeteries and to graveyards to make du'as for their own selves, seeking the blessing of the location, thinking that this person is venerated to them. So making dua next to his grave is most likely to be answered quickly by Allah Azza wa Jal. And this is an innovation. This is totally prohibited with this intention. And it can be means of shirk. It can be means of shirk. Though you're not calling the deceased, the one who's in the grave, but thinking that this is a blessed area and Allah would answer, and you're making dua for your own self, seeking the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is an innovation. If this is the case, facing the grave is prohibited totally. Because for du'as for yourself, you have to face the Qibla. Facing the grave which you think that the person buried there is venerated and glorified and has a status with Allah Azza wa Jal, this is not permissible at all. The final question is from Namira. She says, I know women aren't allowed to travel without a mahram. Does this also apply to girls below the age of puberty? Can a girl who's 3 or 4 years old travel with other women who have their mahrams with them, but the girl isn't a mahram to any of the men? The hadith that prohibits a woman from traveling stated that she's a woman and not a girl. And the Prophet said, ﷺ, it is not permissible for a woman who believes in Allah and the Day of Judgment to travel without a mahram. So a woman, by definition, is someone who has reached the age of puberty. Therefore, a 3 or 4 year old child, if it's safe, and this is the most important condition, even if she did not reach the age of puberty, it has to be safe. If it is safe, she is with good companionship with other women who will take care of her, she hasn't reached the age of puberty, there's no problem in her traveling, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Now we take our first caller, Hamza from Bosnia. Hamza.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sheikh, it's nice to see you back in the episode. May Allah reward you and all the entire Azza staff.
Ameen, and you as well. Barakallah feek.
Ameen, wa feek barakallah. So, Sheikh, if a person's iman is not that high, so he doesn't pray that many voluntary prayers at home, but when the person is at his workplace, his job description is such that he has lots of free time and he offers voluntary prayers there more than he does when he's at home. So my question is, would this be something to worry about, and is this a sign of hypocrisy, Sheikh?
Okay, Hamza's question is very clear. Would offering voluntary prayer at work when I have a lot of free time, be a sign of hypocrisy because when I'm at home, I have a lot of free time. I don't offer such voluntary prayers. Here, you can only answer this if you pray noticeably at work when there is no actual work, but others are watching you. While when you pray home, when there are no one watching you, you skip voluntary prayers and you don't offer any prayers. This is a clear indication that your intention is not for the sake of Allah. But if there is no one at work and no one is watching you and no one is going to praise you and you actually don't have anything to do, so you read the Quran or you engage in dhikr or you stand to pray 2 rak'ahs of duha, for example. Nobody who knows about it. This is not a sign of hypocrisy because you're doing it for the sake of Allah. So you are the judge whether you're doing it for the sake and praise of others or you're doing it for the sake of Allah. Farouk from Qatar. Farouk.
What is the ruling on meditation breathing exercises to reduce anxiety? Is this imitation of Buddhists?
What kind of exercises? Can you give an example?
Like just breathing for some seconds, then holding, then breathing out for some seconds, for like predetermined seconds.
Breathing exercises, if it is a medical exercise approved by doctors and physicians, and they're telling you that this is beneficial for your anxiety, so you take a deep breath, hold it for 10 seconds, and then exhale, then inhale again for 15 seconds, and exhale, and then do that for 20 seconds. Yeah, that might be accepted, and there's no problem in it. But if it's a form of Buddhist meditation that you follow, or you follow that with saying for example, or whatever they say like in yoga or what the Buddhists may use. No, this is imitating the Buddhist. But if you're doing it as a form of a medical exercise that the scientists, the physicians say it's valid, then it is valid, inshallah. Ishaq from India.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
So Shaykh, as we know, working or dropshipping is not permissible in Islam. So similarly, with working for dropshipping companies like Amazon, also haram, because they also indulge in other IT services and cloud services. So if we were to work in the IT domain within such companies, is it permissible for us to do that?
First of all, to my knowledge, Amazon does not drop ship. Amazon either has the products in their warehouse with a price tag on it, with the responsibility upon them if anything were to be defected or bad, or they act as agents to the manufacturers or the suppliers. So they have agreements with the suppliers that they will sell this mug for a XYZ price, which is displayed on their website. The supplier knows the price they're selling it for, and the commission Amazon is taking from them with their agreement. So this is not drop shipping. Drop shipping that is prohibited is when you don't have a product and you simply show them this mug and you tell them, I can sell it for you for $1. And you get orders, you did not receive the money, you get an order, you purchase it from outside, maybe you'll be successful in getting it for less than $1, maybe you will not. And then you bring it and ship it and then receive the money. This is selling what you do not possess, which is drop shipping that is prohibited. But if you have the product and you sell it, this is halal. If the supplier or the manufacturer authorizes me to be his agent, and he says, sell it for $1 and I'll give you 10 cents. And I do that. So I'm taking my wage, I'm taking my fee, 10 cents from the supplier. I have nothing to do with the customer. They will settle their own affairs together. Then this is permissible, and inshallah this answers your question. Muhammad Farhan from the Philippines.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Salamtullah.
How are you, Sheikh?
I'm fine, alhamdulillah. How are you, Muhammad?
I'm fine, Sheikh. Jazakallah khair.
Wajazak.
Sheikh, my question is, can a woman, Sheikh, decide not to get married, like he doesn't want to get married? And also, Sheikh, same goes to a man if he doesn't want to get married. Is it permissible, Sheikh?
Getting married is a sunnah that all prophets and messengers had followed. Allah mentioned in the Quran, addressing the Prophet ﷺ, that all prophets and messengers before you, they used to walk in the streets, they used to eat food, and they used to get married. And the Prophet said ﷺ, said in an authentic hadith, I get married, I sleep and pray, I fast and break my fast. Whoever chooses a sunnah, a way other than my way is not from me. So the Prophet got married multiple times, and he encouraged the youth when he said, "O youth, whoever has the physical and financial ability must get married. And whoever is unable, then he must fast." So the Prophet instructed us, alayhi salatu wasalam, to get married, encouraged us to get married. Is it mandatory? The answer is no. It is dependent on the person. So if a person knows that he is hot-blooded, that he has a lot of desire that may drive him crazy, in this case, it is mandatory upon him to get married, or mandatory upon her to get married. How would we know that? By the amount of sins this particular individual is falling into. So he says, "Sheikh, I don't want to get married." Why? He said, "I don't feel like it. It's a lot of responsibility, blah, 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 blah." I said, okay. We look into his life, we find that this brother or this sister, she is engaged in watching pornography and maybe masturbating and totally distracted, thinking about what is natural in every single human being. In this case, we say it's mandatory for you to get married because you are committing a lot of evil, a lot of haram, a lot of transgression. Someone who says, "I don't want to get married," and he or she has no desire in being intimate with the opposite gender. All they are focused upon is serving their parents or their business or their studies. They don't even care about issues of intimacy at all. They don't have any desire for it. They're normal human beings, but it's so low, their sex drive, they don't think about it. And they know themselves that if they were to get married, they would maybe fall into more sin, being unfair, being undutiful to their spouse, being this and that. In this case, if such a person does not want to get married at the moment, may postpone it for a couple of years, there's no problem in that, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Nasra from the States.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salamtullah.
What advice would you give to the Muslim sisters who constantly have to face discouraging comments from family members or other Muslims who try to convince them that the niqab will be a hurdle in life and that it'll inhibit them from doing basic things like getting a decent education, or just in order to live a normal life, they would have to completely take it off?
Every person on earth has his test. Don't ever forget this fact. Even the richest man on earth, who is he? Elon Musk? Warren Buffett? Bill Gates? The richest man on earth is being tested. Allah did not create a human being or a jinn without them being tested. People tests vary. Some are tested with wealth. What are they going to do with it? They're going to squander it in haram. They're going to earn it from haram. It's their test. They're going to pay for it. It's only a few years, and then in the hereafter, when it's time for the scales to be weighed, Allah would hold them accountable, and then it's either heaven or hell. Some are tested with poverty. They can't pay their bills. They can't pay the rent. They can't make ends meet. So they struggle and they suffer. This is their test. Some are tested with health, power, youth. And Allah would see what they do with all of that. And others are tested with calamities, with illnesses, with handicap, with diseases. And Allah would also test them to see whether they're patient, tolerant, content, or objecting and complaining. Your test is in abusive and bullying members of your family who do not like the fact that you're being righteous, practicing, wearing the niqab. So they try to put hurdles in front of you, obstacles. They try to intimidate you, exactly as the plan which Satan has placed for them. Allah says in the Quran, الشيطان يعيدكم الفقر ويأمركم بالفحشاء والله يعيدكم مغفرة منه وفضلا والله واسع عليم. Allah Azza wa Jalla, Satan orders you or promises you with poverty and orders you to do vice and sins, while Allah promises you with forgiveness and grace. So whose promise are you going to believe? So these bullies come and try to intimidate you. You'll never get married. Nobody will see you. You'll never make it in school. It's going to be an obstacle for you to get a job. You'll never have a career. You'll never have a life. Look at everybody else. They're enjoying their lives. They're going to Disney World, Disneyland, and having fun and living their normal lives while you are wearing a tent over your head. You're all covered like a ninja warrior, and everybody's terrified from you. This is what they say. Footnote. This is what they used to say to our Prophet ﷺ. The same abuse, the same harassment. But what happened? What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, as they say. Look at the companions, how they tolerated such abuse and bullying, and they became the leaders of the world. You are on their footsteps. You're walking the same path. This is the roadmap that we all have to follow. You're tolerant, you're patient, you're content, you're giving them a big smile and not arguing with them, not being provoked by what they say, not defending yourself. Just give them a smile and don't reply. It will turn the tables on their heads. They'll be agitated. They'll be angered by failing to provoke you and to make you react negatively. And this will make you prevail in this dunya, and it will make you prevail at the sight of Allah Azza wa Jal. So remain steadfast on Islam. Abide by the Quran and the Sunnah. Who cares if they praise you and clap all day long for you, or they criticize you and say bad things about you? I could care less. I'm doing what I'm doing for the sake of Allah, and I'm willing to go all the way to the end for the sake of Allah, and Allah knows best. Sadiqa from Bangladesh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Can I send gifts like dresses, jewelries, makeups to my non-hijabi relatives? Because it could happen that they will wear them outside of the house or in front of non-mahram, or it couldn't happen. So what will I do?
This is something that you have to calculate the pros and cons. I could give someone a box or a container of ice cubes. He can use it with cold water and he can use it with his gin and tonic. Maybe, I don't know. So what do I feel? If I feel that if I buy this dress to my sister or to my aunt, and I know for certain that she will wear it without the hijab in front of non-mahrams, it becomes prohibited for me to buy her such a dress. If I'm certain that she will not wear it in front of non-mahram for certain, then it's totally permissible to buy her. If I'm doubtful, the default is that it's a halal dress, and it depends on the person wearing it, whether sinful or not, depending on the occasion and the circumstances. So if I give my mahram or my friend or my relative something that might be used in halal, might be used in haram, but the default is that it should be used in halal, it's their sin if they were to choose otherwise. And I'll give you another example. My younger brother, I don't have one, but let's assume I have one. I give him for Eid a mobile phone, 5G. And there is a possibility that he may watch something that is haram on it. But it's a phone. It's used to make phone calls and to do many useful and halal things. You can put an app of Quran. So what's the ruling? The default is that he's a Muslim and he knows what he's doing, and I'm giving him a tool that can be used mainly in halal things. If he uses it in haram, it's not my fault. It is his. He is an adult. He has reached the age of puberty and he's accountable at the side of Allah. Therefore, there's no problem in giving it to him. And I hope this answers your question. We have a short break. Stay tuned, and inshallah, we'll be right back.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today I'm going to talk about the book Interactions of the Greatest Leader. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam reminded us through his guidance and example that Islam is complete submission to the will of Allah. For one who submits, a mere declaration or display of belief will not be taken for success, but his or her heart and soul will certainly be put to test. Allah tested the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam severely in order that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam becomes an example for his companions to follow. Similarly, he tests the believer to see whether he lives a righteous life in accordance with the instructions and commands set by Allah, or lives according to what his desires dictate. Whether the faith he displays is firmly rooted in his heart, or is it merely on the surface. He will be tested to see whether he will continue to have faith and love of Allah when in a calamity, as he does when in comfort, whether he will continue to remember and worship him if given bounties, and comforts of life as he does when he lives a modest life, Allah will undoubtedly test him to see if his faith, trust and love of him is unconditional, or is it conditioned upon good health and a comfortable life, free from stress and anxiety. The Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed us through his own example that for a righteous Muslim, this life is a testing ground where he will continue to be tested until he meets Allah. For him, tests will be conducted on earth while he lives, and not after he dies. He knows that as soon as death arrives and he steps into the next world, his tests are over. There, he only receives the result of his tests and enjoys the fruits of the deeds that he committed during a short span of time called life.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah and welcome back. We have CD on the line. CD?
Alaikum Sheikh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Wie geht's?
I'm using the phone. Is my audio quality alright?
It's quite, inshallah, good.
Wait.
Now it's not good. Now it's breaking.
Is it now alright?
It's good, inshallah.
Okay, inshallah. Okay, Sheikh. First of all, Sheikh, last time I asked you about what's the punishment for treason, and you want me to specify my question. I was not able to unmute myself, where I tried many times, but it was too late. So that's why I did not respond. And now, Sheikh, my question is, if a person is interested in learning Islamic politics and economy, like how the Islamic state should be structured, who the Muslim ruler is, how he should be selected, and how to be punished, and so much more according to Quran and Sunnah. And this person wants to learn more about them. So which are the best book that talks about the fiqh of politics and fiqh of economy that you would recommend if such fiqh and book exist?
Okay, first of all, this is a little bit way above my pay grade, because this requires someone who's specialized in these things. I have zero knowledge in politics and not that much adequate knowledge in economy. I have general idea about Islamic rulings and teachings. So there are classical books in the politics, in ulum al-shar'iyya, siyasa al-shar'iyya, and how to govern people and how to rule people. These are classical books. I did not go through them, so I cannot recommend any of them, but they're found there and available. And it requires you to read the Arabic versions. Probably you'll find some translated. I don't know how good the translations are, but it will benefit you a lot if you're doing this in your studies. Also, the Al-Muqaddimah by Ibn Khaldun. This is something that a lot of the scholars have praised in having some or a lot of good ideas related to Islamic history. As for economics, you must do the classical fiqh to study the economics from the Quran, the Sunnah perspective according to the favorite three generations. Nowadays, Islamic economy, unfortunately, is based on picking and choosing. A lot of these Sharia boards members or people who work in there are professionals. And instead of trying to find what is the best according to the Quran and the Sunnah, they collect all what has been said throughout history in the books of fiqh, regardless if it is baseless or based on something. It's just there in one of the Hanafi books. It was just there in one of the Maliki books. It's a quote. They just grab it and they put it in cards and they flashcards, and they start to look into today's current economical systems, how they trade, credit cards, transactions, hedging, betting, margins, etc. Everything. Loans and the likes. Bonds. They look all at these things and they look at their flashcards, trying to see something that may coincide and fit. So they say, oops, okay, we found this in a Shafi'i book. Who said this? XYZ. What's the reference to it? I don't know, it's a Shafi'i school of thought. So because it's in one of the books of fiqh, so this opinion is there, we can follow that. Okay, what does the Quran and Sunnah say? Regardless, we have something to follow. Unfortunately, this is how the vast majority, not all of them, this is how they work. And this is how they get their bonuses. And this is how they're getting paid a lot. Because they are twisting, not breaking the laws. They're bending the rules a little bit. And we have a quote from XYZ scholar who said this. And this scholar is maybe 6 or 7 generations after Abu Hanifa or after Imam Malik. But it's there in the books. So unfortunately, this is un-Islamic. You have to go to the Islamic references. Study the Quran and Tafsir, study the authentic hadith and what the scholars have said about the hadith and their understanding of it, with the understanding of the 3 favorite generations. Then you will formulate your own knowledge about this science. Once you explore Islamic economy or other economies, you can relate to that, and Allah knows best. Faizan from India.
السلام عليكم شيخ.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
غفر الله والديك ورحمك الله.
وأنتم كذلك.
Sheikh, my question was, is it permissible for sisters to wear backpacks for school, which would expose the shape of shoulders, but beneath a very loose and a khimar that is up to the knees, so that it would conceal the shape of the shoulders?
I believe that this is inappropriate for a sister who wears the hijab. I would not allow my own wife to do that, because once she puts it on, it shapes her shoulders, her back, maybe even her waist, and maybe tightens the abaya so that her chest would also be apparent more than if she did not wear the backpack. If she wants to wear it, she can wear it underneath the abaya, put the abaya on top. No one can see the difference except this hump on the back, but nothing else. But to wear it on top of the abaya, this is totally inappropriate, and Allah knows best. Fuad from Bangladesh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Ahsan Allahu ilaykum, Sheikh.
Wa ilaykum. Are you related to Faizan?
No, Sheikh, I am Fuad.
Okay, then why you guys speak in the same fashion, in the same tone of voice? MashaAllah. Maybe you are brothers through spiritual Islamic iman, inshaAllah.
Inshallah.
Yes, my friend.
So Sheikh, my question is it permissible to eat crocodile? Jazakallah khairan.
You can eat it before it eats you. Okay, so Fuad says, is it permissible to eat crocodiles or alligators? I think there is a difference biologically between the two. One is in Florida, one in Africa. I don't know. Anyhow, what's the ruling on eating gators' meat? Crocodile or alligators? It's an issue of dispute. Those who say it's permissible look at it as a creature of the sea. What do we mean by a creature of the sea? Any creature that lives in water, whether it's an ocean or sea or a river or a lake, this is a creature of the sea, and it is permissible to eat without slaughtering, like fish, like all types of fish, astacozas, lobsters, etc. Those who look at it being an amphibious animal that has teeth, they consider these teeth to be type of the canines that are prohibited, which the Prophet ﷺ prohibited us to eat anything that has teeth and claws among the birds. But scholars said that the teeth that we are prohibited to eat, the animals, are referring to land animals, not to sea creatures. So for us, a white shark has teeth and it eats meat, but it's 100% halal because it lives in the sea. So it's a difference of opinion among scholars whether it is permissible to eat it or not. And therefore, I believe personally, and I'm inclined personally, that it is not permissible to eat, just to be on the safe side. But it is permissible to use its leather. So if there is a shoe made of gator or crocodile skin, this is permissible if it is tanned, because the difference of opinion. As for the meat, as I said, hopefully that it doesn't eat you first. Raul from the US.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh.
Sheikh, I have a question. For me, as a 16-year-old, I'm still dependent on my mom, living with her. She has a store, and she sells haram things. She buys haram things for it. So, if she tells me to do something, and I don't say, no, Mom, this is, like, she already knows it's haram and everything. If I say no, then she might be angry. She might tell my stepdad to do something. Or, it might be hard for me because you live with this person every day. You can't just go away or something. So can I obey her while hating it in my heart, if this were to exist?
First of all, Akhi, your mom's income in this store, whether she sells alcohol or haram items in Islam, the sin is upon her. The income is haram for her. When she takes the income and she buys food, or she pays for your tuition, or she buys you clothes, or she pays the rent, or she gives you pocket money, all of this is halal for you. There's no problem in that. The second part of the question is, if she orders you to help her in selling these haram things, like loading and offloading the merchandise, carrying boxes of beer or of whiskey, serving haram food, doing the calculation and the accounting part of the income, assisting her in running that shop. This is haram and it's not permissible. She may get angry, let it be. It's best to get your mom and your stepdad angry rather than getting Allah to be angry from you, because you don't want to participate in their sin, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Aisha from Saudi.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sheikh.
Salaam wa barakatuh.
Sheikh, my question is, I'm a working woman, and sometimes it's hard for me to pray muwakkida, sunnat al-muwakkida. So can I do, I can offer I offer fard, but sunnat al-muwakkida, can I do after coming back home, even if the time has passed for duhur?
Alhamdulillah. The default is that you pray the highly recommended voluntary prayer before or after a particular prayer within the times of the prayer itself, when it begins and before it ends. However, there is an authentic hadith narrated by Salama, may Allah be pleased with her, that the Prophet ﷺ once prayed 2 rak'ahs after Asr prayer. And she said, "O Prophet of Allah, you prohibited us from praying after Asr. And now you're praying this voluntary prayer." He said, "The envoy of so-and-so tribe came at Dhuhr time, and I was sitting and delegating and talking with them until the time expired. and I could not pray the sunnah that was post-dhuhr. So now I'm making it up. And this means that if you have a legitimate reason and you can't pray it on time, you can make that up, insha'Allah, and Allah knows best. Faria from Bangladesh. Faria.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Salam wa rahmatullah.
The question I'm asking is long, so it would take some time.
We don't have much time, Faria. Make it as quick as possible. Don't give me details. I understand, inshallah. I'm not that dumb. Give me the question. If I need details, I'm going to ask you for it. So go straight for the question.
I know that not calling the politics kafir nullifies one's Islam. Now, there are, as I live in Bangladesh, I used to watch Bollywood movies. There are Muslim actors who married a Hindu woman in Hindu way. They follow Hindu religion, also Muslim religion, and they celebrate the festivals. Their wives are Hindu, but they don't consider their marriage as haram. Now, I want to know, if I don't consider them as kafir, will I be a kafir or not? I don't understand.
Okay, your question is very clear. Am I obliged to go and label people, whether they're kafir or not, based on their lifestyle? This is your question. And unfortunately, you have a lot of issues. Number one, it's your sin to watch such Bollywood stars. It's your sin to follow up, I don't know what it's called, TMZ or whatever, programs that talks about their lives. It's your sin that you keep on digging in their lifestyle. You should be a proper Muslim and stay away from all of this. Let this be aside. It's not our main concern. What is our main concern? I have an option, either to say that this actor who's married to a Hindu actress or a woman who has idols in his home, who has this and that, and he says, it's up to my children whether to grow up Muslims or Hindus. I have an option, either to say he's a kafir or he's not a kafir, he's a Muslim. Now, assume I took one of these decisions, and on the day of judgment, Allah Azza wa Jal is holding me to account. Why did you call him a kafir? I would say, for the following reasons, O Allah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is my stance then if Allah said to me that, yes, but this guy was ignorant, this guy was delusional, this guy had 3 muftis with longer beards than Sheikh Asim telling him that what he's doing is right, and he has no knowledge in the Quran, and everybody around him was telling him that this is part of Islam. So you gave takfir to someone who's a Muslim, but he's an ignorant. What are you going to say? This is stance 1. Stance 2 is, you come on the day of judgment and say, what do you say about this person? Allah is not going to ask you, why didn't you label this actor as a kafir? Because you're not a judge. This is not your mission and vision in Islam, on earth. Your mission and vision is to worship Allah Azza wa Jal, not to go around and say, okay, Abdullah is kafir, Muhammad is not, Ali is kafir, Ahmad is not. It's not my job. I'm not the religious police. So if Allah will not ask you about him, and even if he asks you about him, you say, I don't know. I don't know the guy personally. I just read an article on a newspaper. Maybe it's true, maybe it's wrong. So I refrained. Is Allah going to punish you? The answer is no. Then what's the moral of this answer? The moral of this answer is, number 1, it is not your job to hold people accountable or to label them. Now, is what this person doing right? Definitely not. If he were to come and ask me, I'll explain to him that what he's doing is an act of apostasy based on the Quran and the Sunnah. But he doesn't know me. He doesn't care about me. I don't care about him. So mind your own business, first of all. Second of all, third of all, who's counting? I don't know. The third point or the fourth point or whatever is that a lot of the Muslims take this one of the nullifiers of the 10 nullifiers of Islam, and they say who does not label a kafir as a kafir is a kafir. And they start whispering to themselves and getting these OCD intrusive thoughts. What are you guys doing? You're killing yourselves. Said, oh, we found this in one of the 10 nullifiers of Islam. But it's not practiced as you think it is. In order to label someone as a kafir, there are conditions that must be fulfilled. If they're not fulfilled, he's not a kafir. And there are obstacles that must be eliminated. If they're not eliminated, he's not a kafir. Have you done this exercise? Nope. So you're just shooting from the hip and classifying people to be, yeah, Sheikh, but he's married to a Hindu. It's none of your business. You don't know why he married her. You don't know if he knows it's haram or not. Therefore, I advise my brothers and sisters to stay away from giving takfir to people. It's not your job. If you were put in a position where you had to make a decision because this is a close relative, then you have to follow the procedure of the obstacles and the conditions. Last caller, Khalifa from Nigeria.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi shaykh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh.
Yeah, my question is with regards to drop shipping. So if you let your customers know that you actually don't have the product, but after they pay you, you're going to go and get it, is that also haram or that is allowed?
This is allowed, brother Khalifa, providing that 3 conditions are fulfilled. And these are the conditions of Bay' as-Salam. Bay' as-Salam. What are these conditions? Number 1, that the product is fully described without any possibility of fault or ambiguity. So he knows exactly that you are buying an Apple Watch, Series 7, size 44 millimeter, whatever. So it's perfectly understood and described. Condition number 2, that he pays you up front. So he likes the watch. He says, okay, here's a $700 or whatever, up front, and you receive the money. Condition number 3 is that you give a precise or close date of delivery. So you say, I'm going to give it to you on the 25th of May, not before the end of 2022. No, you give a specific, within a week from the 25th of May. He agrees, you agree, these conditions are fulfilled, you can go ahead with the transaction. Don't forget my 5%, inshallah. This is all the time we have until we meet you tomorrow, Sunday, at 4 o'clock Mecca time. I leave you fi amanillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
قل هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة أنا ومن اتبعني وسبحان الله وما أنا من المشركين.